And my personal growth tip to you today, especially as a young adult, is this: balance is a myth. It does not exist. And you and I need to stop forcing ourselves to walk this tightrope in our life. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the How You Podcast. This is the Personal Growth Podcast for young adults, and we are right now, as you're listening, starting season number 2. It's lit. But no, man, we're right in the middle of starting season 2, and I am recording from Pod Movement 2022. It's a podcasting conference that we are at, and man, it has been a week of learning, of growing, and I have so many things planned for season 2, and this is kicking it off. This year, or this season, we're going to try some new stuff. We're going to try some rants, and we're going to try some different lengths and content. We're going to try some different styles of content and all of those things. But here's what you need to know. If you're new here, let me explain to you what this is and what this is not. First of all, we call this the How You. It's a play on words. You heard of how to. Well, this is how you, because we talk about how you can be a better you. And the only goal of this podcast is that every time you listen, you walk away inspired to be a better version of yourself. And the goal is that you finish every episode quicker than you can finish a cup of coffee. And I have a little bit right here with me. This year, I want to answer a lot of your questions, and I want you to be able to dictate exactly what we talk about. So slide on over to Instagram. You can follow me at XVR Maryland. DM me any questions that you have or anything you want to talk about, any scenarios whatsoever, because we're building a lot of content like that for this upcoming season. We already have some questions that have been sent in from last season, and we're going to answer some of those, and we're going to jump right in. We're starting this week off with an update and a rant. It's a rupdate. It's a ant. We're starting this week off with an update and a rant. Man, the last couple of months have been so packed with new things in my life. If you haven't heard, my wife and I are expecting our first kid, and we are praying about paying for it. I'm trying to decide whether or not I'm going to pay for it because it's expensive and they're not going to stop me from having a baby. I'm joking. We're going to pay for the baby. But the point is, the wife and I are having a baby. We're due in October, which is just in a few short months, and we are prepping for that. In the middle of that, I started a new job as a campus pastor, a new role at my church as a campus pastor over one of our campuses, and it has been a whirlwind trying to learn everything. We ended up restaffing most of the pastoral leadership at the campus. So we're right in the middle of that right now. Simultaneously, I'm trying to transition out of the student ministry that we were leading in the high school ministry, trying to transition out of that well. So there's a little bit of a dual responsibility and a double job going on there right now. And on top of all that, Francine and I both have some family issues that we've been dealing with. And so it's just one thing after another, and trying to be a husband to a pregnant woman and my pregnant wife, of course, not pregnant woman and my pregnant wife, they're the same thing. Trying to be a good husband to a pregnant woman in the middle of all of those things has just been tough. And if I can be honest with you, I've been struggling to find balance. And maybe it is that in your life right now, you've been struggling to find balance. Tell me if this makes sense to you at all. You ever work all day and then you get home and you still have more work to do? Like work, you could have stayed at work and done more of your job, but you decided to go ahead and go home, and you get home and you go to sleep, but then you might have that boss who is following up with you about stuff even after hours a little bit, even though you tell them you're not answering your phone. But when you get there first thing the next morning, there's still this pressure to produce. And you're realizing when you're talking to your boss, you're talking to your company, that you can't get all of your job done in the 40 hours that they expect you to work. And they're not going to pay you overtime, so you just stop. But they still want to put this pressure on you. And now you have to learn to set boundaries around your work and around your rest. And so you start feeling they try to make you feel a little guilty for resting or for having a life. And then vice versa. Maybe you feel a little guilty when you come home and you aren't as productive as you feel like you could be because you're thinking, man, I could be reading more. Man, I could be starting a secondary business, but you're just so tired when you get home from work, you're drained and you're like, man, I just feel like I don't have balance right now. Maybe work is getting a little too much. Maybe my family is getting a little too much. Maybe my hobbies are getting a little too much. And you're constantly beating yourself up when you rest too much and constantly beating yourself up when you sleep too much or when you work too much, rather. That is exactly the season that I feel like I've been in for the past few months if we've been figuring out all of this stuff. And my personal growth tip to you today, especially as a young adult, is this. Balance is a myth. It does not exist. And you and I need to stop forcing ourselves to walk this tightrope in our life. Forcing ourselves to fit into the perfect amount of family time, the perfect amount of a social life, the perfect amount of a friends, the perfect amount of being in a relationship, the perfect amount of work, so on and so forth. Balance is a myth. It does not exist. As a matter of fact, I've been reading this book recently or rereading this book. It's called Your Life in Rhythm. And what the book argues is rather than trying to find balance, you and I should just focus on building a consistent rhythm or learning to ride the rhythms and waves of life. Because the truth is, in your life and in my life, there will be times where we give more energy to work. And there will be times where we give more energy to family. And if in those moments we force ourselves to try to fight our way back to the middle all the time, we'll find ourselves fighting a losing battle because there's no room for error when you're searching for a perfectly balanced life. The issue with a perfectly balanced life is that there is no room for error. But if you and I learn to say, hey, life is all about rhythms. This might be a season where I'm giving more time to my family, but there'll be time to work on my hobbies later. This might be a season where I'm giving a lot of time to try to start this new business, but there'll be a season later where I get to hang out more with my friends and spend some time with my friends. Yeah, this is a season right now where I'm giving a lot of time to the relationship that I'm in, but there'll be a season that comes later where I get to dive in at work and just focus on grinding it out and getting to that promotion that I wanted. And so here's the question I have for you. What would your life look like if instead of trying to fight to find the perfect amount of balance, you were just comfortable living your life in rhythm, in a wave? I'm not saying go with the motion, but I'm saying understand that there are some dips and understand that there are some rises in your time and how you're going to spend that time. Hey, if you found this week's episode helpful, I encourage you to go ahead and hit that plus so that you get notified every time we drop a new episode. For some reason, I always say we. I feel like I'm supposed to say that, but it's every time I drop a new episode. I am the team right now. I record, I edit, I do the whole nine. It's a one-man show. But the point is, you want to hit that notification bell so that you get notified every time we drop a new episode. And you also want to leave a review if you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Leave a review. Those really, really help the show. Share it with somebody if you found it helpful. And like I said, I'm always ready to continue the conversation over on Instagram at XVR Maryland. Man, thanks so much for locking into this week's episode. We'll see you again soon. Take it easy. Remember, you won't go anywhere unless you grow somewhere. Now it's over.